Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Green. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Green is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.
Welcome to the podcast. This is your co-host, Seth Green, with my longtime friend and business partner, Partiv Shah. Today, we have the immense honor of interviewing the reason we're both here and the reason both of our businesses exist, the legendary marketing expert, Dan Kennedy. For those of you who don't know, Dan is a serial multi-millionaire entrepreneur, a highly paid sought-after marketing and business strategist, advisor to countless first-generation from scratch multi-millionaire and seven-figure income entrepreneurs and professionals like Partiv and myself, and one of the very highest paid direct response copywriters in America. He's written dozens and dozens of books. And if I had to pick only one business author I was allowed to read and I had to get rid of every other book in my life, Dan would be the one I pick. We are here today to talk about his new book, The Best of No B.S, the ultimate no-holds-barred business anthology. Dan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure. I got to ask, why another How to Succeed in Business book now? And I've always wondered what motivated you to start the No B.S. book series in the first place.
So the series started in its current form in 2004. And there were some earlier books before that. I sort of officially started a business in 1975. And I suppose I did what many people do. I tried to fill in my knowledge and competence gaps by aggressively obtaining and consuming information. And I found a growing revulsion for the business literature that was out there. It fell into 3 categories. One, written by a bunch of academic pinheads with alphabet soup after their names, theorists who wouldn't last a week running a Dairy Queen. Another group of corporatists, the current or former CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And big business and small business, the only thing they have in common is the word business is in both of their descriptions. So that's not, most of that is not really helpful. And the third group was mostly a bunch of authors, speakers, consultants, coaches who had never actually done successfully those things about which they were authoring, speaking, consulting, and coaching. They were actually giving book reports about prior books written by authors, speakers, consultants, and coaches who had never actually done the things they were authoring, speaking, and coaching and consulting about. And so I started taking notes. And as I figured stuff out, sometimes expensively and painfully, sometimes by modeling, sometimes by more revelatory discovery, I started taking notes. And it became increasingly apparent to me that my notes about what worked in the real world business were astoundingly different from the hundreds of business books that I had accessed. And so that birthed the start of the book series. The No B.S. brand, which is attached to it, was birthed roughly at the same time, although it dates to newsletters of 1990s. And it really was inspired by wanting to be the opposite. All of this, what we might now call misinformation or unapplicable information. The reason for this new one is not that there is a crying need on the planet for another new book or even another No B.S. book. This is a convenient encyclopedia-like compilation for people. The editors at Entrepreneur Magazine and Entrepreneur Books, my publisher, picked 12 of the 36 No B.S. books that they judged most important and most timely, and they picked chapters and excerpts from all of them and organized them into 5 sections. So, Ken McCarthy said the other day when I was doing one of these calls with Ken that, you know, a business is like a car. It has a lot of moving parts. And that's true. And people that have never run a small business, of course, don't give us enough credit for managing as many moving parts as there are. So this, what has been done with this book is all in one place, in one logical progression. We have dealt with the most important things that I have had to say about each of the moving parts. And so for that reason, it justifies its existence.
So this is like one book that can either be read at the beginning of reading other books, or is this for people who read all the books saying, here, read this book also, or is it for both crowds then?
Well, since I'm selling books, the answer is both. But actually, the answer is both. So someone who's new to me can get a great overview all in one place, all at one time, and they can pick perhaps things that are very specifically relevant to their current situation that they choose to do a deeper dive into, and they can then get the entire and complete book from which the excerpts were chosen. It's all identified. The person that has already over the years purchased and read all of the No B.S. books and has them all neatly lined up on a shelf somewhere can still benefit a lot from this, because it concisely pulls for them from all those books the most important items, including, I say it's a book to use, not a book just to read. I mean, it's 575 pages, so it will get you through the winter. But it's a book to use, too, because there are 17 action checklists. And almost every strategy that's presented is presented with tactical examples. So it's not, an old mentor said, philosophy's nice, but you can't eat it. It's not a philosophy book, and it's a theory book, and it's sort of like having taken all the other No B.S. books and shoved them through a juicer.
You talk. Oh, there's been a trend among social media marketing gurus, among the social media networks themselves, marketing agencies, all urge business owners to spend money on brand awareness, video views, engagement, likes, comments, shares. You argue against that. Why?
So brand is enviable, desirable, valuable. I've made a point of building one myself, but there are excerpts here from the book No B.S. Brand Building by Direct Response. And so my argument about attaining brand recognition in a market is that unless you have unlimited Wall Street or Silicon Valley funding, you'll go bankrupt trying to buy it. You set out to become as ubiquitous as Campbell's soup. You better have 9 lives and a whole lot of money. So the better strategy for most business owners is the one that I lay out in brand building by direct response. Now that impacts your social media question, and I don't want to lose it. I want to come back to it. But I want to give you a brand building by direct response example that is in everybody's face right now. Yet, because it's not in their specific business, they may be seeing it and not learning from it. And that's My Pillow. So the My Pillow guy has sold 70 million pillows so far. And picked a product that, I don't know, could you find a more mundane, ordinary, uninteresting, unsexy, price commoditized, plain Jane product to try and build an empire with? Probably not. But he has sold 70 million pillows. By doing so, not in advance of doing so, but by doing so, he has built 2 very valuable, very powerful, very leverageable brands. He has built the My Pillow brand, which both front end and back end is being extended to other products, mostly related to sleep and to the bedroom, even including beds. So they're selling sheets, they're selling mattresses, they're selling mattress toppers, they're selling beds, they're selling nutritional supplements that help you sleep, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Second brand he built by the act of selling 70 million pillows through direct response is his personal brand. Who doesn't know the guy? Doesn't know who he is? He's pretty damn recognizable. And that is leverageable and extendable to things beyond that which you find on the bed. For example, he's currently launching a coffee brand and, of course, an auto ship recurring revenue business with coffee. All of this has been done without spending a nickel on traditional brand building, advertising, marketing, or public relations. Also, at the same time, he has acquired the names, addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers of at least 35 million people, if they each bought 2 pillows, who know him, who know who he is, will be more likely than not to open a piece of mail from him with his picture on the outside of it, and will be more likely than not to be interested in something new that he presents to them. The traditional approach is to go spend millions of dollars, including on social media, I'm getting to it, to try and establish brand awareness that then can be leveraged into selling 70 million doohickeys. My method, which is My Pillow Guy's method, much saner. It's much more financially doable. I've been a big part of one. I worked since day one with my client Guthrie Renker on the Proactive business, the acne glove. Proactive was built into $1 billion brand, sold for $1 billion without spending a nickel on brand building by direct response. So that's now half of my answer to your question. The other half of the answer is that all media sellers, social media no different, prefer advertisers who do not hold the media accountable for measurable results. And for, I think, obvious reasons. However, you and I are spending real money. And if we're spending time instead of money, we're still spending real money. And so every time there's a new collection of media that is promoted as new, like social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of it, an argument is made that it cannot be measured by old metrics, cannot be held accountable to old standards. It has new metrics. And if you try and argue for old metrics, you are a dinosaur and a dunderhead who doesn't get it. So we find ourselves in the language of likes, views, and viral, and so forth. However, I don't care if you can succeed at getting 2 million people to watch you twerk on TikTok. That's no better than having 2 people watch you twerk in your backyard. Unless you can prove to me that you moved a significant number of those 2 million people from TikTok to a platform you control, into funnels you control, where you can convert a significant percentage of them to giving you money. Because when you go fill out a bank deposit slip, you can't put twerks on it. You can't put views on it. You can't put viral on it. You can only put dollars. So reality always reasserts itself. And that's one of the reasons that the only media in 2022 in which there has been a significant downturn in ad spend is social media. Reality is reasserting itself. Advertisers are starting to count. So my position is agnostic. I don't care what media we use. And more often than not, the more media we can use, the better. But we can only use media that can prove itself valuable by measurable return on investment in dollars. We cannot accept anything else unless we have unlimited Wall Street or Silicon Valley funding.
Seth, can I ask my question now?
Of course.
So then I have 2 questions. One, I own a done for you implementation agency where I implement everything I learned from you, Dan Kennedy. And my clients are dentists, physicians, lawyers, financial advisors, and influencers. If I were to give your book to them as their first introduction to Dan Kennedy, or here is the last of No B.S. or the latest of No B.S., what do you want me to tell them when I gift them this book? So that's my question 1. And my second question is, I am Seth is, and I know at least a dozen people who will buy 100 or more of this book. What advice do you have for people like me who will have 100 copies of this book? How can I use them with my books to propel my cause?
Well, so the first question. Second question, I'll give you a little broader answer to. The first question, the first answer is tell them, other than the Holy Bible, this is the most important book they'll ever read in their lives. Whether you believe it or not, please tell them that. The broader principle of that, of benefit to everybody on the call, whether they give my book or they deliver any other information piece to a clientele or an intended clientele. You want to employ the principle of profound importance. So you never want to just give somebody a free report or offer somebody a free report. You want to offer them or give them the free report that is of profound importance, either from a beneficial standpoint or from a threat of loss standpoint. So whatever the piece is, it should be the piece that is the only piece that tells the whole truth, nothing but the truth. It should be the piece that will ensure that they and their spouse and their children can actually move about in now very dangerous cities with the highest level of safety possible, and therefore it must be read, watched, seen, gone and fetched online before anybody in that household sets foot outside the door again, etc. So when you use a information object, a information piece, in order to attract leads to you, in order to impress leads with your generosity, in order to benefit by the principle of association, for whatever reason, you want to attach to it truly profound importance. And I answered Seth's really first question by doing my best to attach profound importance to the entire No B.S. book series by describing it as uniquely different from every other piece of business literature on the planet, and profound importance to this book in part by being a book to use, not a book to read, and having 17 action checklists, etc. So that's my answer to your first question. My answer to your second question, then, is when you are going to pick something to distribute in quantity, my book, that would be lovely. I had a client for several years. We gave away well over 50,000 copies of Think and Grow Rich in hardbound, or a 12-page booklet of somebody's, or a audio message of somebody's, or a video message of somebody. Want to do three things with it. Want to create what I call good guilt. A little bit of obligation to pay pay attention to your messaging because you have gifted them this gift. Second, you want to thematically tie whatever it is that you are offering or promoting or publicizing to it, so it's not just a standalone, unrelated gift.
Okay, so tie me.
So if I was going to let me finish. So if I was going to give away a copy of the Sherlock Holmes novel, Hound of the Baskervilles, to a bunch of prospective clients, I would tie it to talking about how the consultant is really a detective and how it's useful to take a detective attitude toward your business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third and last thing you want to do, which is where a lot of people really screw up, is you want to offer and instruct a next step. You want to make an offer that they now respond to, and that does not require them to fully consume the information gift that you gave them, because that delays your response to the point that it doesn't happen. But you want to do all three of those things.
You say in section 3 that some of your best advice and hardest to accept advice, honestly, is to stop selling products and services. What that seems counterintuitive. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So first of all, if we back all the way out from it to the broadest principle that I can state, it is whatever everybody else is doing in your space to your market, don't do it. Now that applies to everything. Now if we come in from that to this, to advertising marketing, then we find that pretty much what everybody's doing, certainly everybody deriving ordinary or average incomes from what they are doing, is they are all yelling and selling about their products and services. Their default list is product, service, features, benefits, prices, discounts. We're having this conversation a few days before Labor Day. And every furniture store, with very rare exceptions, is yelling about the Labor Day mattress sale of the century. They are talking about mattresses, bonuses that come with mattresses, prices, discounts, and financing. And the noise is deafening to the point that you can't tell me who's who. You know the message, but you don't even know one from the other who's screaming the message. They are all in a mud pit, mud wrestling with each other, to the point they're all so covered with mud, looking at them, we can't even tell them apart. Well, if we don't know what to do, and we're in the furniture business, they just told us what not to do. Don't get in the mud pit unless you want, at best, a very ordinary, very average income from your furniture business. Now, this principle applies to everything. So stay out of the damn mud pit. That then forces us to think about, well, if we're not going to do that, If we're not going to get in the mud pit, what are we going to do? And now some good stuff happens, like creative imagination and transfer of strategies from outside of our own niche, becoming a direct marketer instead of a brand advertiser, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we get to this by a lot of different directions in the book, one of which there's excerpts here from my wealth attraction book where there are 26 wealth magnets, one of which is be somewhere, parentheses, that nobody else is. So there's a very successful high-end mattress company, $15,000, $20,000, $35,000 mattresses. And they set up a big pop-up store at most of the classic car auctions in the country that last 2 to 3 days. Most of these auctions also have a big exhibit hall, but most of the exhibitors have something to do with cars. There's people who paint portraits of your car. There's people who sell you parts for your car. There's people who sell you insurance for your car. And in the middle of all this is this giant mattress store selling $30,000 mattresses called Out of Place positioning. So what happens as a functional matter is 80% of all classic cars are bought by men, but 60% of all classic car owners are married. Classic car auctions are held in good places, Florida, Vegas, etc. So John and Mary go, and Mary tags along for the first day before she gets so bored she just doesn't even come. John is in the auction hall about to buy yet another $100,000 toy. Mary is wandering around restlessly out in the exhibit hall. She finds, lo and behold, a mattress store with fabulous mattresses. And the most expensive one is less than what dummy is in there going to spend on another car. So Mary buys a mattress. And this thing works marvelously. Now, I've just described a micro-tactic application of a strategy from a principle, so you ought not get hung up on the micro-tactic. But the strategy of be somewhere where nobody else is, and another wealth magnet is do something nobody else does, these are applications of the stay out of the mud pit idea. Selling by story is another application of staying out of the mud pit idea. Ultimately, the goal is profound differentiation. And we are operating in a very undifferentiated world. The internet has contributed to that. We are operating in a very commoditized world. So profound differentiation is more important than ever. And so there are applications here in the book drawn from the No B.S. Trust-Based Marketing book, from the No B.S. Brand Building by Direct Response book, the No B.S. Maximum Referrals book, and the No B.S. Wealth Attraction book.
You talk about, I mean, we're obviously in a tough set of economic circumstances right now as we're recording this. Before we wrap up, give me a read on the economy and what it means to our viewers and our listeners.
So the most important thing I could say, the preface is, boy, are you right. We are in the middle of a very distorted, to many very dangerous, very difficult, therefore very confusing economy. It is weird in that its component parts have never gone together simultaneously before. So we have a deep and deepening and broad and broadening recession. But it is coupled with low unemployment, partially because we have record low workforce participation. But nonetheless, it's coupled with low unemployment It's coupled with a labor shortage, causing its own inflation, crippling to small business. And it is coupled with runaway inflation of wholesale goods and services rising to retail goods and services, and that is coupled with supply chain problems. So it's a mess. The most important thing I can say about it is not transitory. This is not the 90-minute daily Florida thunderstorm that everybody just runs into the gift shops and restaurants for an hour and waits it out and then comes back out at Disney and turns to play. This is here for a while. Little changes within it, but predicting timing is, of course, a fool's errand, but I will say it's here for at least 2 years and more likely 5. So you can't wait it out. The business person who thinks they are just going to suffer for a few months and then everything's going to go back to normal, or the business person who thinks they can survive this by doing the same things they're now doing, the same way they're now doing them, but doing more of them, working harder at them, or doing them faster. They're not going to make it. This requires creative adaptation, and it requires doing different things, doing them differently. Now that's in adaptation and application. So literally everything in this book that is important under less stressful circumstances was well selected to be even more important during these circumstances. So the items here about ruthless management of people and profits, the items here about direct marketing, etc., are all extremely timely. The goal, of course, is always to be in front of people with the ability to buy, willingness to buy what it is that you sell now, prices that you want to sell them at. This all still exists. However, there will be shortages of them. That means that very targeted, precise marketing efforts are more critical than ever. Where you might have been able to get by with sloppy, butt against the wall approaches, you will now get slaughtered by that. Now, I do have a piece of good news. So the good news is, with slaughter comes opportunity. Every time there is a Darwinian thinning of herds within our economy, every single time, there is orphaned and abandoned market share. There are orphaned customers, clients, and patients. There are neglected customers, clients, and patients. All that is ripe for the picking by the person who can aggressively pick and has a plan, a set of strategies that allows them to aggressively pick. So, in every place, including the Great Depression, really smart entrepreneurs found opportunity that did not exist were it not for the Depression or the recession. I'll give you an example. But again, I don't want people to get hung up on the micro example, but draw from it only as a demonstration of this fact. So if you read W. Clement Stone's book, The Success System That Never Failed, you will find in it Stone's own story. And W. Clement Stone, out of the depths of the Great Depression, built the largest independent national sales organization of life insurance in the country, ultimately sold to a conglomerate called Aon that made Stone a billionaire plus some. Stone built it with a door-to-door sales force, going business to business, office to office, store to store, not house to house. A lot of it in major cities that had high-rise buildings, so the salesperson could live for a week or two just going door to door in the skyscraper, 1 to floor 25. But what made Stone's success possible in a time when all sorts of other insurance agents, brokers, and companies were folding up into a fetal position and trying to wait for a sunny day, is Stone was able to recruit a much higher caliber of salesperson to work on straight commission and go door to door that he would have been able to recruit during good economic times. Very same dynamic occurred for Tupperware. Tupperware had its greatest growth during a recession because they were able to recruit a higher caliber woman, a real estate agent, an insurance agent, a lawyer, a financial advisor, a manager in a company, bank manager, to, as there is what we now call a side hustle, run Tupperware parties and build a Tupperware business. When during good times, they could only recruit business inexperienced housewives. And so the recession gave them this opportunity, and they were smart enough to capitalize on it. And coming out the back end of it, a number of these higher caliber people had built incomes and businesses that they liked and were not going to walk away from now just because the recession went away. In fact, many went full time and built very big dealerships. So now that's a micro example of the fact that economic trauma and slaughter always produces opportunity. Some from thinning of herds, some from other factors like I just described. So this, of course, now boils it all down to our power of choice. William James, one of the original founders of Harvard, said that the only thing that separates man from pig is man has a mind capable of reason and therefore the ability of choice. So we, uniquely amongst all species, have the ability of creative imagination. Again, of Disney's quote, there's never a shortage of money, just a shortage of creative imagination. So we have the opportunity to now hunt for, find, unearth, reinvent for, reorganize for opportunity. And all around us, people are paralyzed and panicked and confused, and many of whom will sell their businesses for dimes on the dollar. They will simply shut them down and give up. They will be forced out of business slowly and gradually and painfully. We get to choose which group we are going to be in, the successful minority or the aggrieved majority. And in a sense, it's the same choice we make every morning when we wake up, regardless of what's going on outside in the economy. But the choice is more critically important now than it is at some other time.
Well, Dan, we know your time is incredibly valuable, and we are just about out of it. We greatly appreciate your time and, of course, all of your expertise over the years. It's why both of our businesses exist. The new book is The Best of No B.S., the ultimate no-holds-barred anthology. Get it from us, Partiv and myself. If you're listening to this on iTunes and you don't, the link will be in the show notes. Otherwise, you can grab it at Amazon or entrepreneur.com/bookstore. Dan, thanks again. It means the world to us to have you on.
Thank you, Seth. Thanks, Partiv, and thanks to everybody who is in the audience.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everybody,
Bye.
for watching or listening. We'll talk to you or see you next time.
Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.